when my office as the then special advisor to the president organized an all political parties and stakeholders summit. In that summit, we gathered virtually all political gladiators to the roundtable meeting. And in that atmosphere, they agreed to play politics by the rules. And of course, the historic Abuja Peace Accord was the crowning of all the political parties summits I organized. The Abuja Peace Accord was the agreement signed by two main gladiators in the 2015 polls, General Mohammed Buhari, as he was then called, and the then president, Jonathan Goodluck, and all the presidential candidates and their party leaders to douse the tension and accept the outcome of the election, whichever way it goes. You will agree with me that the Abuja Peace Accord was among other reasons President Jonathan accepted the outcome of the 2015 election, despite the fact it didn't favor him. As we gear up for the 2019 election, the president must find someone who can be trusted across the party lines to put up an all-political party summit as we did in 2014 and 2015 to reduce the current acrimony that has enveloped the political space and to get assurance from the politicians of their commitment to free, fair, credible, and crisis-free elections. My kind of politics is that played as a friendly sporting event where one person must emerge the winner with the other congratulating him. Politics is not a do-or-die affair. It is rather a sporting event. Every politician must imbibe this culture. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, my job is to chair this great occasion. I would therefore allow our guest speakers to talk to us. But before I take my seat, my final admonition is that we approach 2019 election. As we approach 2019 election, Nigeria must not fail Africa and the world at large. Thank you, and I wish you all a very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
It's time for us to call on a special guest of honor. She served as a Minister of Education and Minister of Solid Minerals in the Nigerian government during the era for public procurement, legislation, proudly head of the Budget Monitoring and Price Intelligence Unit, aka Due Process. She was recently shortlisted as a nominee for the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize by the PRIO of Norway, owing to our efforts in making the world more transparent and less corrupt. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call on Dr. Mrs. Obiageli Ezekwesili, the former Minister of Education, and of course, the presidential candidate of the Allied Progress Party of Nigeria. Please keep clapping for her, don't stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, very kind of my schedule. But I am so delighted to have been able to join you at this event. The Igbo ambassadors as a grouping is an indication of what happens when people gather together. And sometime, was it yesterday or thereabout, I was in Enugu because there was a TEDx and I was one of their speakers. And it was on divergent thinking. And one thing that we know is that whenever people gather together and have a conversation, creativity happens. When I read about the genesis of your organization, I found it quite interesting. They said they gathered to have fun. And in the course of that gathering, they began to talk. And out of their talk came a vision to have an organization like this. And that for me is creativity in action. And so I'd like you to join me in congratulating the families that got together and today have an organization that has been able to get so many distinguished people to join us at this event. Your topic says Nigeria Beyond 2019. First, let me acknowledge the person sitting in for the chair, Mr. Moto. Thank you very much for chairing this occasion. Thank you very much to Mr. Ugochukwu Mora and the members of the ambassadors, Igbo ambassadors, the families of every member of this organization. And I also acknowledge distinguished guests who have come from outside of Igbo land, who are part of this conversation. Thank you to all of you for choosing to spend your Saturday at this. The topic says Nigeria Beyond 2019. And I'd like to make just a couple of points. Point number one is that Nigeria does indeed have the prospect of being a country beyond 2019. However, we have to be deliberate and intentional in ensuring that it happens. Nothing happens that is not made to happen on the basis of the fact of the many challenges of our country. It is often stated in the world of development that countries don't do well when a multiplicity of crises happen at the same time. You cannot have economic crisis and have security crisis and have humanitarian crisis and have social crisis and have political crisis all at the same time. The combination of all of these crises end up becoming a basis for the fragility of a country. Fragility is usually the phase that takes you to a place of failure of the nation state. You know that today's Nigeria is a Nigeria where we have the combination of all the crises leading to a crisis situation. And so we have to be deliberate in avoiding what could possibly be the failure of our country. Number two is that people know Nigeria to be that country where some divine providence always manages to pick us up and away from the precipice. But we cannot push our luck or our fortune too far. We need to be very strategic in realizing that there comes a time when you cannot allow what one of the young friends of mine calls anyhowness to be a basis for always coming out of trouble. It therefore means that we cannot take the conditions that prevailed in other instances where we were nearly at the region of a disintegration to simply work themselves out. We do not have that luxury. We must be very intentional and strategic in avoiding the path that leads to disintegration. Number 3 is that the 2019 elections is a referendum on the political class of our country. The extant political class of our country has governed the country by 2019 for 20 years in this latest cycle of democracy, which, by the way, is the longest cycle of democracy in our country. Previous cycles of democracy averaged not more than 5 years. The 1959 elections led to the independence of our country, independence government in 1960. It soon unraveled with the coup of 1966, so that democracy was barely 7 years old. The next time that democracy came was through the elections of 1979. Are you following? That's 20 years after the last, the independence election of 1959. We had another election in 1979. That election led to the Shagari administration. There was a second term that commenced in 1983, I believe. It was short-lived, and by about this time of the year of that 1983, there was a coup again, and that ended that democratic journey. That was less than 5 years of democracy in that site. For a long time. The next time there was going to be democracy was 1993, but it was still born, and so you couldn't count it as one of the important journeys, because the then government decided to minimize the epoch nature of that election, which saw the country reflect the usual tendency to primordial leanings that we were always accustomed to. Military rule continued following the annulment of the 1993 elections. It was not until 1999 that we had another election. And so 1979 to 1999 would give you how many years again? 20 years. So 1959, 1979, and then 1999, which suggests that as a country we travel on a 2-decade cycle as far as the issue of democracy is concerned. So the 1999 elections happened, and governance resumed on a democratic basis. But remember, the mindset of the Nigerian people, having been a mindset that was acculturized to militarization, did not fully understand what it meant to now be in a democracy. And so, what happened from 1999 was essentially the vestiges of militarization showing up in the way that we understood democracy or understand democracy to work. One of the things that we know about democracy in the study of that system of government is that it enables the level of freedom that leads to democratic accountability and to economic liberty, and therefore it enhances the prospects of a people functioning on creativity and diversity of thought and just innovation, because people are allowed the freedom to think. We haven't done well in that regard, because accountability was not something that we knew under military rule. Only those, and I think it was one of our founding fathers that said, only a madman quarrels with the man with the gun. Am I correct in that quote? So most Nigerians are not madmen. You can see they didn't say women, because women can be daring and quarrel with the man with the gun. But they, you know, so what do you think happened to our society? Our society learned how to be self-preserving and not to demand for accountability during the period of militarization. And so with the advent of democracy in 1999, we still didn't get it, that here comes a system of government that places the citizens at the center of determination of the quality of leadership and governance that they get. So, in the usual way, people simply just minded their businesses. What they did would be to go vote, and as soon as they voted, they would just revert into their enclave and do whatever they needed to do. So what do you think happened? The political class that midwifed the 1999 elections was left to its own design. And that's how come you would hear me say that we do not have a political party problem in our country. We have a political class problem. We have a political class problem because the citizens alienated themselves from the democratic process, abandoned the political class to be the be-all and determinants of everything that pertains to the country. And there is no democracy, properly so-called, that functions at its utmost possibilities where the citizens are missing in action. For is it not said about democracy that it is government? I need you to talk. No, that's not what ours has been. Our own understanding of democracy is that it is government by the politicians, for the politicians, and by. Pardon? Did you say something?
He said,
and it's, I think it's equivalent. So, what do you think has happened therefore? What has happened is that democracy has not essentially materially benefited the people for whom it is meant. And so we have done better in terms of the gestation of this cycle of democracy, because by the year 2019 it would be 20 years of unbroken history of democracy. You can at least clap for that. Compared to the average of 5.5 years for those two cycles, we've done pretty well to subordinate the military to the Constitution and the power that it gives the Nigerian people to have the authority to determine who leads them. But democracy, having failed to translate itself to good governance, and therefore the production of results in the raison d'etre of government, which is that every government exists and functions, that the quality of life of the citizens may improve progressively. If a thing does not perform the purpose for which it is meant, my father always raised us to say, it has no reason to live. There must be purpose fulfilled in anything that exists. Otherwise, its existence is absolutely an inefficiency to the world. Shall we then say that our democracy should cease to exist because it has not delivered? The answer must be no. Because for our democracy to cease to exist, because 20 years, almost 20 years after it has not delivered good governance, it has not made a material impact on the lives of the people, therefore it should come to an end, and we must find another means of governing ourselves. Would be to not know that a certain wise man, a statesman called Winston Churchill, said, democracy is the worst form of government until you have tried all the others. And for those of us from Nigeria, those in my age group, our democracy may be creaky. It may not have delivered, but we have decided to vote for democracy. And so any conversation about Nigeria beyond 2019 must be done within the context of the fact that regardless of how suboptimal the results of governance through democracy has been, we, the Nigerian people, have chosen that democracy is a better system of government than any other thing that anyone can offer us. And so we must eliminate from the options on the table the possibility that a country could descend into a situation or a condition where the military would make the mistake of ever thinking that we would consider them saviors of Nigeria. That era is gone. For it has been proven time and over that they were unable to correct anything that was wrong with our democracy. Therefore, point number 5. If anyone is in a position to correct what is wrong with our democracy, as we head into the 2019 election, it must be the Nigerian people. It must be the Nigerian people coming to a place of awakening, to a place of understanding that 1% of the population, not even 1%. I always believe that if we did a proper counting of our political class, that it would not amount to more than 0.05% of our population. So when the rest of the Nigerian people come to a place of awakening that democracy is properly so called to the extent of their own understanding of the amazing power of the office of the citizen, correction happens. Is it not said by a certain Roosevelt, as one of the distinguished leaders of America, that government is not some alien force, that as a matter of fact, government is you and I. And that government is not the senator, not the president, not the member of Congress, not the bureaucrat in office. That government is the people. That government is the citizen who, understanding the amazing power that they have, choose to exercise that power. I have said many times in the country that the office of the citizen is the highest office. And you cry and you complain and you agitate amongst yourselves, thinking that Salvation is going to come from a political class that has never had an incentive to do better than to gather and cry in helplessness and hopelessness. When a time called 2019, the opportunity to yet again determine whether they would correct the breach that has been the pattern in the election of the quality of people who make up a political class that only incentivizes its own desires and needs, to the utter neglect of the fact that democracy has not produced sensible outcomes for the 87 million Nigerians now classified as extremely poor people, overtaking a country 7 times the population of Nigeria. How do you explain that in the light of the sheer possibilities that Nigeria has had? It's the failure of the people to exert the power of their office. Every time that the citizens have an opportunity to determine the quality of their leaders through the political process, and they fail to do so effectively and efficiently, they simply are complicit in the failure of governance. That's my 6th point. So no matter how we mourn, no matter how we cry, we're complicit in not seeing that Plato was after all correct. It was Plato that looked at what was going on in his society at some point when the literate ones, the philosophers, the really creme de la creme of society, decided that politics is too mundane, politics is too dirty, it is too beneath us, and got contemptuous of the political process.